Hello, thanks for joining me. This is my first Tesla YouTube video. A quiet Sunday morning in Eugene, Oregon during the COVID-19 lockdown, and I'm out doing my part to support local businesses by getting some breakfast takeout. This is a quick drive with the most recent version of Tesla firmware 2020.12.6, although I know there's a .10 version out there somewhere. I did not receive it. And a little bit of background. This is my third full EV. Purchased a used Leaf several years ago, and she converted me to the whole concept of EVs. About 2 years ago, purchased a Model X 100D, and then 7 months ago, traded her off and got the Performance Model 3 that I'm driving here. This is going to be, I think this is about a 8-minute video to see how she does with the latest firmware. I'm shooting this with a GoPro Hero 6, I think. I'm attempting to do a picture-in-picture so you can actually see a little bit more about what the car is seeing and what she's showing on the center display. And I didn't have an external microphone rigged, so I'm going back and dubbing the audio after the fact. Here in a couple corners, we'll get to a spot where she's a little bit more happy to do auto steer. And I do apologize because you will hear me talking in the background on the actual video, although I've turned its volume way down, so it might just sound like more mumbling in the background. Here we are pulling up, obviously, to a stop sign. She sees it, but she's not on auto steer, so this basically ignores it. A couple of interesting things to note here. This is a 45-mile-an-hour zone, which she shows. I'm going to go ahead and change lanes and engage auto steer and let her take over. And I am keeping both hands on the wheel and my right foot hovering over the brake pedal, because this is the first time I've tried this, and after watching a couple other YouTube videos, I realized that, well, spoiler alert, I would say at best she is a 15-year-old new driver with a learner's permit. Although she does take this stop pretty well, if a little bit more aggressive on the brakes than I would be. I tend to coast a little bit more with the hopes of more regen. One thing to notice here is the speed limit drops to 35 just as you come, just with those 4 lanes merge into 3. And if you'll notice, her max speed is still set to 45, and we blast through this green light and keep climbing up to about 45 before I realize that we're speeding and use the fancy little Model 3 feature of tapping the speed limit sign on the screen and having her drop to 35. So far, going through this area, she seems to be doing pretty well. I'm learning as much as she is when to tap the gear selector stop. But there's a couple of odd intersections coming up here that are going to be interesting to see exactly how she handles them. And again, I apologize for my mumbling in the background. I may go ahead and take that out. So this is an odd intersection. There are the 3 lanes split to 4, and she actually sees those 2 left red turn lights, and starts to slow for them, even though obviously they're not in our intended direction to travel. And if you look carefully on the picture-in-picture screen up there, you can actually see a stop line that was drawn that didn't actually exist in the real world. And here we are coming up to another rather odd intersection. I'm going to go ahead and get in the lane that I want to be in. our 3 lanes turn to 4 and we split. Um, but there's a car sitting here, so we will come to obviously a full stop behind this car. Like this actually might be an unmarked police car. I'm not sure. Um, we're about to come up to an area where there's a lot of new construction going on, and I haven't actually been through this area since they did all this, or they started doing all this. And it's again, it's an odd road. The oncoming lane actually disappears. There's a center divider, a bunch of crosswalks, a bunch of cones, and the speed limit I think drops to 25 through here. Although you'll notice that once she starts to see all these cones, she automatically restricts the speed to 25 anyway. I don't know what she would have done if it weren't for the cones. The speed limit's 25 anyway. One thing I've noticed is, having made this video and actually going through this process, I've noticed how odd some of these intersections around here actually are. With 2 lanes becoming 4, 4 becoming 3. Here's another instance where we have 2 separate sets of lanes merging at an intersection. So this is going to be interesting to see because obviously there are 4 lights here. I'm sorry for that picture-in-picture kind of disappearing. We need to readjust that. Um, and in this case, she actually did reduce her speed, the maximum speed to 20, which irritated everybody around me. Well, only one person. And I'm almost to my destination, so I'm going to go ahead and let her. Okay, so here we ran through that yellow light. Um, I noticed one prior to that. Oh, maybe it's this one coming up. It turns yellow, and she actually slows and comes to a stop for it, even though I indicate to go ahead and go through. I'm indicating with my foot on the accelerator, and she ignored me and came to a stop. I think that's probably the right thing to do, although I may have stepped on it and tried to make through it. Um, but I wouldn't have been doing 20 miles an hour either. I'd probably been closer to 25 or maybe even 30. I'm coming up to the restaurant, so I'm going to take a right off of this main street and see how we do on a little bit more of a side street. All right. I tried getting her to start automatically when the light turned green, but it didn't work. You have to actually, the light actually apparently has to be green, and then you can indicate, okay, it's clear to go. And then here's my right turn. I'm going to go ahead and take her off of auto steer, but I'm going to come right back onto auto steer to see how she handles this stop sign. It's a four-way stop, and then another kind of a unique situation here at the end where the road kind of ends in an odd roundabout. I did notice that she set the max speed up to 30. I'm going to go ahead and indicate it's clear to go. And then she accelerates a lot more aggressively than I would. And at this point, I said, all right, I don't really want to be cruising through here at 30 miles an hour because the road comes to an end. And here I am basically at the destination. Stop and go grab my breakfast. Um, I think this is probably the biggest update I've seen in 2 years in terms of how it impacts day-to-day driving. Um, has a long way to go. She feels like a 15-year-old with a learner's permit right now. Very nervous, unsure. Um, but yeah, I mean, all in all, it's been a pretty big change. Um, I'm really curious and excited to see where the next couple months take us. Thanks for taking a look at the video. Leave me comments below. As I said, I'm new to this, so any input will be greatly appreciated. And thanks a lot.